Hello, and thank you so much for joining me on my first episode of Miss Indy Talks Egypt. If I sound nervous, it's because I am. Bear with me, I'll get better. Today, we're going to talk about some of the classes of society from the New Kingdom from 1600 BCE to 1100 BCE. BCE means before the common or before the era. This is the social pyramid. At the top of this pyramid are the pharaohs. Egyptian pharaohs were kings of ancient Egypt and were considered gods by their culture. The pharaoh was the political, religious, and military leader of the land. They, of course, also lived a life of luxury with large palaces and believed that everything belonged to them. Everything breathing, everything living, everything growing. Next, there were the government officials. Now, they were considered part of the high class. Their job was to assist the pharaoh. They usually came from the pharaoh's family. Let's talk about the three most important government officials. The first one would be the vizier. Now, he was the pharaoh's best friend, chief judge in society. The chief treasure job was to collect taxes and to look after the government wealth. The general of the armies advised the pharaohs on matters of war. He was also responsible for protecting the borders and helping make alliances. They also lived lives of luxury and attended lavish banquets. Next, we have the priest. They were highly respected. The high priest, his job was to advise the pharaoh, and he oversaw all religious ceremonies. The temple priest, now they were in charge of all of the temples in Egypt. Their job was to make sure that the God of the temple was taken care of. They also oversaw embalming and the mummification process after death. The ancient Egyptians believed that if this was not done properly, that the person would not have a good afterlife. We're going to be getting into some of that much later on in this series. I'm very excited about that part, so stay tuned for that. Next, we have the scribes. Now, these were Egypt's official writers, and so they were responsible for keeping all of the records. Women were not allowed to be scribes. However, they were from all different classes. So it didn't matter which class you were in. You could be a scribe. You just couldn't wake up and be one. You had to go to school for it. And when you went to school, you had to learn more than 700 hieroglyphics. It was a hard thing to do, and a lot of the students were beaten often. Now, once they were out of school, they worked different places that required writing. Some of what they recorded was grain and food. They recorded the government census and kept track of army soldiers and how many enemies were killed in battle. Next, we have the artisans. These were highly skilled laborers that created some of the most amazing pieces of art in the ancient world. Although they didn't get the credit they deserved, they specialized in carpentry, leatherworking, and also sculpting. The most skilled artisans were stone carvers. These are the people who created all the statues around Egypt. And even doing all of this, the upper class still considered them common laborers, and they were not respected, not at all. Next, we have the peasants. This is the largest social class. These are the unskilled laborers of Egypt, so their job was to grow the crops that supplied the food for Egypt. They also helped build monuments during the flooding season. After working all year, the parents, excuse me, after working all year, the peasants were offered a reward at the end of the harvest season. This meant that they were allowed to gather as much leftover grain as they could and keep it for themselves. But beware, if ever the harvest came up short, they would be brutally beaten. This will do it for the first episode of Miss Indy Talks Egypt. I will be going, I believe my next series will be on the living conditions. We're going to speak on the pyramids. We're going to talk about who actually built the pyramids. We're going to talk about how we speculate the pyramids were made. It's just so much. I'm very, 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 very excited about doing this. I just want you guys to know. Of course, we're going to talk about some of the most popular pharaohs. King Tut. We're going to talk about the last reigning one, Cleopatra. Oh, yes, we're going to go get into all of her business. Cleo was a little messy. Bet you didn't know that. Tell you something else you probably didn't know. Did you know that she wanted her sister murdered? Yes, Arsinoe, Cleopatra's sister. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about it. Once again, thank you so much for coming in.